Is it meant to do that? Or did you do that?
And we're back.
I wasn't expecting that either, if anyone is tuning in. Anyway, Mug. Hi, how are you?
Option. I mean, so hello to more than our five normal listeners, because I think since the last episode, we've gotten quite a few more listeners. Thanks, Imtishan. Even if you were wrong about everything. No, just
We
kidding.
can actually do that at the end. Let's do that. Let's give you a platform to kind of address that. That's a nice thing to do at the end.
No, no. I think if anything, we should have a round two with Imtishan to talk about some of those things. Now, but
But what are we talking about today?
I don't know. Let's start off with what's interesting. What's new with you in the car world? You just showed me something.
What do you mean, the Hot Wheels?
Did you throw
I
it away
actually,
in the
well, no,
past
actually,
minutes?
uh, no, that's a good point. I think it is kind of a nice segue into what we were talking about on WhatsApp, which is um, brands and something we've observed in the Middle East, especially moving away from doing traditional advertising to doing non-traditional uh, activations and specifically experiences. And the decision to put more budget into, as you said just now, Mo, this little Hot Wheels, which is a special promotion with Porsche. They've made this Hot Wheels. It's very nice. Uh, these little things, and specifically like activities or experiences that people can do. We were talking about Driven. We were talking about that new Porsche farm place. You mentioned Ferrari was doing a few different things, experiences over traditional advertising, and it being a very popular thing and becoming more popular in the region, right? Is that a good intro? I think it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm going to point out my own ignorance on prototype racing, because when you showed me that, I didn't realize that was a Porsche. I thought that was a Toyota. So,
Oh, bad.
cool. All right. Yeah, I do road cars, not race cars. That's where I'm at. I can tell you all about. I have started being able to identify Chinese cars. Very proud of that. Um, but I think, yeah, that's a good lead in. I think there's I don't think it's just regional as well, right? Like, we've largely seen the demise of the auto show, and what have people moved to from that, right? You've seen them move to like more brand exclusive experiential things. If Correct me if I'm
Pebble
wrong.
Beach is now, yeah, Pebble Beach is now, and that whole like week is the space where a lot of premium manufacturers are showing off their product and flying in actual regional influencers from the Gulf to that event. And the other one I think actually is a good example. What you just said now is Goodwood. Goodwood, same thing. A lot of manufacturers are flying in people, and that has now become the British Motor Show, whatever you want to call it. And they openly admit it too, and that's because it's an experience rather than just being a traditional motor show. Sorry, go ahead.
No, like literally half an hour before we started, you jumped onto this. I had seen an Instagram story from what's her name, Laura, the French
Oh, the French
influencer.
lady. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in UAE based. I think she was jumping on a plane to go to Alula for a Mercedes event. So, there is. I mean, that is, I guess, perhaps it's a press event. That press events have existed since the dawn of
Yeah.
time. I think Deshaun told us, but I think there is that experiential thing. So let's okay. Why don't you kick off with? I think you wanted to start off the topic with Driven, because this started a while ago with a few weeks ago, before I got insanely busy with that conversation, because I have a lot to say about Driven and a contrasting experience and complementary experiences as well.
Yeah. So,
Hold on, before we do that, why are
sure.
why are manufacturers doing this? Why do we think they're moving away from traditional ad spend towards experiential?
Let's define what this driven thing is for people that might not know, and then through that we can answer that question because I think it's a good example to. Yeah. Go on.
And specifically, we're talking about Driven by Porsche in Blue Waters in Dubai, not the
Yes.
Driven location in Abu Dhabi, not the original one. That's not brand affiliated.
Yes. So as you know, I used to live in the region. I used to live in Dubai for a long time. Moved to Germany, and surprise, surprise, in a marketing calendar, and this was for 75 years of Porsche. They had a calendar for all global events, and one thing that was on that calendar was icons, but also Driven. Driven, as Mo said, is a brand of car cafe in the UAE, and its Dubai branch has now become the de facto um, Porsche coffee space. It's got food. It's like a place that you can meet. They host a lot of events there, but it is officially sanctioned and like on the global marketing calendar. So, and as you said as well, this isn't something that they kind of overtook it. They took it. They created a brand, or they took a brand in the UAE and then rubber stamped it with the Porsche thing. That's what Driven is. It's a space that has food, drink. They've got Porsche merch. They do special events. People do meet and greets there. And actually, what was interesting is it's become a space for me to meet you and friends when I come into the region, because it's kind of easy to access. And I remember meeting quite a few people there. Uh, Interesting anecdote. Sid, who we might have to have on this podcast as well. I went with him last time, and he made a really interesting point, because I asked him, like, what is this for? Like, who is this for? And he said, listen, the Porsche world is big, but it's also very varied, uh, and there are the little micro niches in the community for Porsche. There's the Cayenne guys, there's the GT3 RS track people, then there's the Targa people, then there's the PTS, whatever you call it, I can't remember. You've got all these different tribes within this. Yeah.
uh,
Um, but
it's
the
a purple
interesting thing,
car. I like purple car. That's a quote from a
yeah,
previous
cool, but
episode.
the purple car's slightly different, and it's one of one purple. But he made a good point, which is that like a brand like Porsche has an ability to pull in everyone to one space and allow people to cross pollinate. And it's not necessarily that you stick to this space and this community event. You might then find people that you are, similar with, and then go to do your own thing. But as a umbrella, it's quite nice, because only Porsche has the power to pull people together. And it's the same thing he said about icons. And those are two examples, as you said, Mo, earlier, of brands, and specifically a very big brand like Porsche, deciding to invest more money into creating spaces for community, doing these kind of activations, events, rather than doing more traditional advertising. And I think that's an interesting trend. And what I say is traditional advertising is outdoor press, TV. That stuff is becoming less and less popular. And I think it's because they just see more potential to create a brand and ROI. To be honest, I'd love to find numbers. If we could find someone in the region actually that has media numbers, that would be cool. But clearly, the brands are seeing a lot more potential in that,
Yeah.
potential to create increase in brands, doing special things with influencers. I can imagine there's just a lot more opportunity with these spaces. That's my intro. I hope that's okay. Yeah,
So,
please, you thought.
like, I think that's very interesting framing. I'm going to nitpick a little bit and just say the one really important thing that I think you've personally missed about Driven is the actual cars on display, right? That there at any given point there are two or three cars are on display
Three,
inside the premises. Three.
upstairs.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I was forgetting that there's two downstairs. I couldn't remember. I knew the one upstairs because that's usually the coolest one in my opinion.
and it's stuff
But
like this. Always got something like that. Look at just the hand.
so,
Wow.
what's interesting is those are either owners from the community. Those are cars from the community, or they are in the most interesting times. They were cars on display on loan from the Porsche Museum. So I
Correct.
think that happened at various points. Now, can I get into my criticism and counterpoint to a certain extent, right?
Sure.
Of
In terms
Driven
of minutes.
by
Yeah.
Porsche, right? Is that okay? So I didn't, and I will start this off by saying I didn't see it quite the same way you did about bringing the converted together, right? The Porsche faithful. I
And
saw
that
it.
was, to be honest, I want to credit the man. It was an interesting conversation I had with Sid, because he's in that scene.
Fine.
So
So
thank you,
we'll
Sid.
qualify that Sid said this and not you. Um,
Yes.
so Sid, you're wrong. And then, but no, you're not. We're exploring this topic without him. But I think what I thought of it as more was this is advertising to convert the uninitiated. This is, people that don't care about cars or don't care about Porsche could potentially come to a cafe space instead of a dealer or a track day or a motor show, which is dying as an event. Motor shows, that I'll get into that point later, I suppose. But they can come. This is a low barrier of entry, something interesting for them to do with the kids on the weekend or come in as a tourist or whatever, and it becomes a conversion point for them where they're like, okay, now I'm interested in Porsche. as a result.
So it's a
Um,
low intimidation space, you're saying?
yeah, so rather than spending money on out of home advertising or influencers or whatever, what you've done is you've created this cafe space, which then will hopefully broaden the appeal of your brand to people that perhaps would not have paid attention before. You're reaching them in a different way. It's a different media vehicle, effectively, right?
Yeah, so
Um,
that's a good point. There's a different audience than I was talking about, and that makes it stronger. So I'm still waiting to find out why you don't like it.
well, I think when they bring the vehicles over from the museum for loan, it's very interesting. I come there and meet with you specifically because as somebody coming from Abu Dhabi, it's very easy for me to access as opposed to going further into the city because I refuse to put up with Dubai's traffic anymore. Like I will not, absolutely not. You know, there's a reason I don't live there. But I think as a whole, the place leaves me cold. It's hollow to me. There's a few different cars there from the community that I may or may not care about, that I may or may not be able to see in the street. It's in a very like influency, and maybe this is why it's not marketed towards me. It's the food is okay for how much it costs. The coffee's nice, I suppose, but there's nothing really significant about the space, the locations, and this kind of like influencers in the wild kind of area where nothing else really seems to work well. Like um, yeah, and I'm just questioning whether it's the best approach. Because, like, yes, I know they have artwork. They have this really tiny space for merch, but that's it. It's really just it feels like a soulless cafe rider.
But
Cafe
you've
rider,
been to Singapore, right? And you saw a better version of that. Is it in Singapore or is it Malaysia? I forgot.
yeah. But
Yeah.
like, let me bring in the cafe rider element. Cafe rider is very well established within the enthusiast community. It is motorcycle focused, but I think everyone that's a petrol head has been there or needs to go there. It lives, it breathes because it is a workshop as well. They create custom bikes there. And it's not a corporate, right? It was created by somebody that actually cared about this. And that's, if I look at the aesthetic of driven by Porsche and Blue Waters, and Cafe Riders in Al Quoz, it's where all the workshops are for cars and stuff, and even the location. It's very organic in a way, right? Like it seems real.
But it's
It's
not longer popular. And I think it's an interesting, like, it's a
not
bit of a
popular. I mean, I'm not up to what the cool kids do in Dubai
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. It's the it's specifically in Dubai, the world has kind of moved on. And I think what's interesting with it is because,
So
as you
sad.
said, was a Cafe Rider was a a focus place, and the car community was honestly always bigger than the bike community in the city, and they needed a space, and they've kind of split off. And I feel like Cafe Rider is a really good example of like a prototype
Like
that's been
well, it's
landed.
space more than driven. But sorry, I cut you off because your thing is choppy. But
Sorry, what were you saying, Mo?
I was saying that is has driven become that de facto space because I feel like it's more. I would
Well,
say it's 12.
that's flat. 100%. That's flat 12.
I feel
That's
like
even further.
yeah, no, keep going. Sorry.
No, no, that's fine. Sorry, there is a delay. Yeah, that's even further in the city. But that, as a person who now views the scene through the Instagram, the number of times I think it was just Imtisham actually, it was his. I see these big community events at Flat 12. Flat 12 for cars. What is now what Cafe Rider had become by accident because there was no other space for it, and the community saw it. But that's not. I don't think. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds with a specific example. Tell me about what you
So
think.
that's what I'm saying. I think the whole driven concept leaves me hollow. I don't see where the conversion goes. It doesn't make me, for example, even as an enthusiast, more likely to buy a Porsche. Seeing that does nothing. It's just an easy point for me to get to, and you like going there. So I like this is 100%. Like I go there because of you. I don't care for the place. Um, but what I did see in Singapore, I was there with a friend of mine that actually works at Porsche Consulting, and he's a big Porsche fan as well. And he he said, Mo, I've seen this place. Let's go get breakfast there. So we went with another friend of ours one morning in Singapore, and um, there was I can't. Is it just their main dealership? I don't know, right? Like that. I don't know enough about the place.
It's
It is.
yeah, that has this other space attached. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, first of all, like many things Porsche, it's architecturally very cool. It's a very cool looking structure, both inside and out, and it's connected to uh, an office space, which I would say like large office towers, which are full of finance bros or like your target audience, really, for Porsche, right? Guys
Mhm.
that,
Yuppies.
um,
Still,
huh?
it's yuppies. It might have like we might have used the term, but it's just the yuppies now have gilets, but they're still yuppies.
Yeah, so like it's in the right spot. Clearly, it looks correct, and when you go in, the food is not the overwhelming part of it. There is something called the Carrera Cafe there. They do some like croissants and whatever the hell else, not like full meals like driven, and they do some nice coffee and whatever. But it feels more like an extension of Type 7, right? In the extent where it captures more of the overall lifestyle. Like for example, I've learned from my wife who's big into scents that like they had things like Diptyque's candles there, which is kind of it fits into that overall lifestyle. They've got a kids play place which is Porsche themed. They've got like, all these books and stuff which may or may not necessarily be about Porsches. They might be about connected themes, like for example, like architecture or design or history or whatever the hell else. But more importantly, the cars that are on display are not behind a glass case and are not unattainable. They're for sale. You can buy those cars. The merch space is more generous. You can actually go there, shop around, browse, and pick up something nice. I picked up a souvenir sticker, which unfortunately I've now lost, but whatever. The Yeah, so like I see the path to conversion, right? Like I go in there, I go down there for a coffee or a thingy, and I'm like, okay, this is nice. I'm influenced by the type of person that comes in, like, okay, these are like influential or businessy type people that afford these cars and are buying these cars. I can interact with these cars, I can schedule a test drive, I can buy it, all of that. It's not just like a warehouse in the middle of like a random location with some Porsche art thrown around.
But
It
I
it
think
it, it feels like a much better extension of the brand, and I can actually buy the car there if I want to.
I think what we're doing though is we've got like a category error. I feel like these it's like apples and oranges. I think what you're describing is a new way of thinking about a dealership, whereas I feel like Driven is something different. It is a community space, and it's intentionally not hosting new cars. And I just want to add something to what you're saying now. Is it? I know it's not Neo. What's the name of that Chinese car brand that you lease cars through? Um,
Lincoln Co.
Lincoln Co. The, Lincoln Co. here in my city in Düsseldorf have a very very similar style dealership to what you just said now, and it's a different way of viewing a dealership. It sounds a lot more like what you were saying with Singapore, and I think those two things aren't the same and they can coexist, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah,
I completely agree with everything you said about how good that is, but that's also, I think, the rise of experience informing everything to do with buying a car, including the dealership. You don't just want to go into a space and kick tires, and you want to have a place that you can sit down, have a coffee. Like I can buy socks from a Lincoln Co dealership. Socks,
so
you know, like what? Yeah,
I live across. I get you because I live across the street from a Neo house, as I've mentioned a few times,
yeah.
and it's made me see the brand in a very different light than the way I would see most traditional EV manufacturers or whatever. It makes the cars very cool. And I mean, I think the only disappointing part is they've got a lot of merch on display, which you can't actually buy, which is frustrating. I'm like, why is it here if I can't buy it? But I think
But
they'll cross the bridge someday.
I think there's a transition. I think they still don't know yet how to be a more driven space, and they're still trying to be a traditional dealership. And like I can imagine their
Not the
inventory. factory. Their systems are still set up to sell cars and not be a place to sell coffees and socks and model cars.
No, you can. I mean, I've worked from there before. I've taken Hashim there for a coffee before as well, who's another person we need to talk to at some point. But um, I think they've worked out the coffee shop part. I just don't know why they're not selling merchandise. But let's not get into the weeds about that. I think you're right. They're two different concepts. I just don't see the community part. Maybe because I'm not part of the Porsche community, and maybe because I don't think I really engage with car communities on a whole. I find them boring. The I don't, especially single make communities. So I don't think I see the point of Driven. I think I get it as an introduction to Porsche. It's for the uninitiated. So, for example, it's a good place for somebody to drop by, get a coffee, maybe have a snack, and they're like, "Oh, I'd never considered buying a Porsche before, but this makes it cool." But I feel
Oh,
like they could be
like
doing more or better with that space.
yeah, and or like I've just bought one, and I it's not just a mobility appliance, but it's a like a part of my identity, and I can become like part of a community. You roll your eyes, but like that's the appeal. What's it
So
called? There's that quite very Porsche that like the last car that will ever be sold as a sports car. It's because it's not a appliance, and that's what I think Porsche's maybe doing wrong at the moment. I need to be careful. But I think moving into being too much of a mobility appliance takes away the specialness. And like every Porsche that you drive should be welcome at that kind of space, because I think that's been the secret to these cars all along, that they haven't been just mobility, but they've been a car you can live with every day, but is something a bit more special. It's an experience machine. Do you want to talk about some other examples as well? Because I think the
I
Ferrari
think
one you talked about was quite good.
what you're saying here, I'm going to connect it to a different example. Is that like
Mhm.
if I am an owner, a new owner or whatever, I personally, if I bought a 911, I would not show up at Driven and like park it there and be like, ah, cool, I'm an owner now. Like that makes no sense to me. Like I just want to stay away from those people. What does make sense to me is the farmhouse thing they're doing now. So this idea that they've set up this, like, what is it? This glamping setup, it looks like, where it's an experiential thing that you book with the brand, where you can now drive your Porsche out regardless of which one it is. I've seen like I think I've seen electric what do we call them, Macans in the marketing videos. Regardless of what Porsche you have, you can go out on this nice drive with Porsche, with other nice Porsche owners, and experience the Porsche lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Like this whole glamping thing, being in the outdoors. There's an element of luxury with there, because let's not forget that Porsche does ultimately, it is a premium product, right? So they need to portray that as well. They can't just put people in tents in the desert, or can
Mhm.
they?
Not those
Um,
people. They still do that for Le Mans, for example, but there's still like actually Le Mans is a good example. They had a partnership with a hotel chain that did specific glamping experiences at Le Mans,
But glamping is
because
not like tents, yeah.
it was tents. They were tents, but they were fancy tents, and you got
Oh,
like
yeah.
slippers, slippers, and like robes and shit, and uh, yeah. But even that side of the track enthusiasts, if you're at Le Mans, you're there for a reason. Even they were like, you need to Porschify it a little bit.
And
But
then
yeah,
then there's icons of Porsche, which is Porsche, sorry. Icons of Porsche. But there's we can't not talk about that, right? I think it has become one of the family events in Dubai. It's
what
relatively affordable. It's a good day out, huh?
what is it first? Just so we can like set the.
It is, I think, what is it? Is it a full day or multi-day experience of one full day, pretty
It's a
much?
week. It's a weekend, 2 days.
Oh yeah, right. It is 2 days. Okay, cool. So it's a weekend where it starts at about in the early afternoon and goes on till fairly late in the evening. And it is a display of a bunch of community cars. It is new cars. It's electric. It's heritage. It's motorsports. It's everything in between that is Porsche. And it's everything from like a 911 plushie for a baby to, um, the latest hybrid racing tech for people that care about that stuff. It is the video games and everything. It is the cult of Porsche in a way, But the interesting thing about, I didn't enjoy it. I only went there because I think it was, you were in town, and it was a good way to get all our boys together in one spot. Which good, good for us. We managed it once that last year. That was amazing. But personal note.
Then it did
Um,
its job. That like I think what I want to say is that with an event like that, not all of it will be for everybody. And if it's a space for you to meet your friends, then it kind of did its job. Do you know what I
I
mean?
could have met you anywhere else, guys. But like, I think while I didn't enjoy it, unlike Driven, I fully respect that it is effective. I think it serves as a much this event and the way they've promoted it and the way it's become such a mainstream thing. Tickets are selling out. You can pre-book them. I'm getting ads every day to buy them at this point, for the upcoming edition, and it's just like, you've really hit a chord when you're getting people. My wife came to this. She cares zero about cars. Like, in fact, she gets annoyed if I take her to car events, but she was willing to come to this because there was enough hype about it. She'd heard enough that, from her other non-car friends about it to be interested. And I think that's what's really good about that is they've managed to bring everyone together at a single brand event. That's unheard of for me. It's just like, who cares about your brand event? Even as an enthusiast, I don't care about your brand event, right? Like, but Porsche has somehow done that. They've made everyone care, and they've made that a
It's
central event on the family calendar for the year for many people. So I think that is effective branding. That is, I think, a much better, as we discussed earlier, much better. The ROI on this is likely much better than spending on billboards or magazines or influencers or any of it. I mean, not to say that they've not had to spend on those things in parallel as part of the campaign for this, but I'm guessing the ROI on keeping Porsche a household name, making them an aspirational brand, all of this, making them not just for us, but for generations to come. That's
Mhm.
where I think they really hit the mark there with that.
Yeah.
So
Imagine baby Mo or like 10-year-old Mo going to an event like this and being able
man,
to
he
hmm?
loved it. Mahmoud's kid loved it.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, um, it feels like a really great way to make people fall in love with your brand in the future. I think we both come from a generation where that happened through video games. I have a collection of cars. I've owned different cars from a non-traditional advertising source, which was how many cars were in video games when I was growing up. That's not as big anymore. I don't think it's not as specifically unique. But I feel like these kinds of events are an opportunity for kids to start. They used to be say driven by dreams, but to get kids to dream about owning these cars, what kind of a fantastic event would let it like? It just feels like a great space to get a kid to say one day and recreating that ad. Do you remember the very famous Porsche ad? I think it was 20 years ago now, where the kid
Oh
goes into
God. Yeah,
yeah.
that was like a 5 minute long ad, and I've watched it so many times in my life. It's right up there with this like Nike running ad, one of my favorite pieces of advertising work, because the
What is
insight
it?
is so good.
Let's for people that might not know. Do you want to describe the ad?
Basically, there is a kid, he's sitting in class doodling cars, effectively a 911-ish shape. He sees a 911 drive outside. The kids and the teacher make fun of him, like, what are you paying attention to, or pay attention in class or whatever. And this kid, like, after class, jumps on his bike, rides over to the Porsche dealership, and he's greeted by the salesman who shows him around the 997. I think, yeah, it was the 997 Carrera. And basically, he shows him around the car and everything, and when the kid's all done, he's like, "I'll see you in about 15 years or 20 years or whatever it is," right? And and I guess the voiceover is so powerful too, right? Like, there's the moment you first realize you want to own a Porsche, and the decade or so in between before, and for the truly afflicted or whatever, the decade or so that passes in between before you actually own one, and then 911 Carrera, the purest expression of who we are, right? Like, just Also, why I love the Carrera more than any other car they make. But yeah,
But that's my point, that like, to go back to cold hard facts about ROI, I wonder if an ad like that today wouldn't have as much impact as it did then, because there was just less media. But to give kids the experience of actually sitting in cars and then like seeing the funfair that is that kind of, event, it feels like that will happen much more often, and it will happen through like it's like, how it's actually genius. How do you get to give thousands of people the experience to get their kid to sit in a car like that, record it on their phones, and then have individualized like almost like one-to-one replicas of those experiences? You do it there, right? Because there's the lights, there's this. It's a fun fair. This isn't like a boring staid car show. It's a fun fair.
the yeah, and with the ad, there's a disconnect, right? Like you see that, and then at least when that ad first came out, I must have been what, a freshman in college, or university, and if I went down to the dealer, they'd just be like, ha ha ha, a poor, like something like that, and probably wouldn't pay me much attention or let me get around the car or whatever. Whereas here is the brand itself filtering all that nonsense out, saying, here, play with the cars, be the ad,
Yes.
be the kid in the ad. Um, which is, I mean, now maybe it's easy for me to be a bit more cynical now that I've actually driven various Porsches and like, explored owning them, driven friends' Porsches. It's a bit different now, but I guess if you are that kid and there's that disconnect, between actually wanting to get around one, what better place, right? Like, what was it, like 25 dirhams a ticket or something? I can't remember, but it's less than 100 dirhams. I remember.
But also, like, how do you do that year round? You have a space like the one in Singapore, like you were saying, maybe not driven, but there are other brands that do this. It feels like that's something now that is done all the time, right?
Like Neo House, when you walk into the front door of Neo House, you know what's there? That crazy electric supercar that they've made,
They
hypercar
had
that they.
it here too. They had it here too, and it's such a like a big draw.
Yeah, kids are all over it. Like I see them on Friday after school running in their school uniforms and stuff to go see and take pictures of that car, as opposed to, like they're not going to go look at the Neo ET5 station wagon. Like that's when they're 40, not the hypercar is what they want now. But I
Mm.
think Ferrari's got a different approach to this, don't they? Right? Like because we've seen some stuff with them, and I think that's what has always separated, Porsche from Ferrari, is that Porsche is more democratized in a way. It almost seems attainable, where Ferrari makes no illusion of trying to be attainable. They are not for everyone, and they don't want to be, and that's what makes everyone want them in a way. But I think they've got this whole like, what is it? We saw luxury like resort experiences where you can book in like a Ferrari resort day where you can like drive the cars and like you get sold a bunch of stuff. I don't know. Like I haven't explored that fully, but it seems a very very different proposition to what someone like Porsche or Neo is doing.
Well, I think actually no. To that point, Porsche does exactly the same thing with their cars as well. Specifically, the GT cars here in Europe, they do a lot of like experiences for owners. So what's interesting is I think in the past, and it's been going for a long time, the relationship would end once you own the car. And I think what the brands are trying to do now is to keep you in their world, and to give you an opportunity to not just buy a car, but buy something in a different frame, to buy a lifestyle, to buy into something like that, and to also a CRM, keep you in their fold and keep you, enjoying the thing that you've sold. So they haven't sold you when they've sold the car; they'll continue, doing things for you, and that's a new way of trying to sell cars. And I think it's been, as you said, effective.
I
I
think
wonder. Mhm.
I'm going to add one more point to this, and I think this is all I really have left to say about this, is that I think this experiential thing, whether it's a dealership or an event or a cafe, seems to go hand in hand with the demise of the motor show, right? Because um, I didn't become interested in cars because of video games. I'm a little older than you, if you remember this,
Oh, you're like
and that
2 years
makes enough.
older than
That
me.
makes enough.
Come on.
Huh?
That's 2
I think
years
I'm
older than me.
difference that I like. What's it called? I got access to Gran Turismo and stuff like that when I was a bit older than you, or maybe I just didn't necessarily have the hardware or whatever it was. My entry point into cars, and I still have a photo of it somewhere. Maybe we can throw it up on our Instagram if we ever decide to do anything with that. Is there's a photo of me at the Jeddah or Riyadh Auto Show, probably Jeddah, with standing next to a Testarossa, and
Oh, I know
that's
the picture. You showed me the picture. I know the picture. Yeah.
I've seen it. It's my favorite photo of when I was a kid. That was my entry point to cars. Actually, seeing and feeling, and to your point about icons of Porsche, right? But we were recently, a colleague of mine and I, that were trying to work on a few projects for cars recently in the UAE. We were exploring different motor shows, and we found out that there's not a lot. There's like mobility conferences, there's like the future of energy and EV and autonomy and stuff like that. But the Dubai Motor Show is dead. The
I,
Abu Dhabi Motor Show is dead. Um,
but imagine a Goodwood in the UAE. Like I feel like something like that. Hmm?
or Icons of Porsche or the Grand Picnic. That's what those are, aren't they?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like the Grand Picnic has an opportunity. Oh, sorry, the Grand Picnic is an event done by Flat 12, friends of the pod, actually.
Well,
They were,
I'm not
hmm?
friends, but I'm not friends. I
uh,
haven't met them yet. Friends of
okay,
yours, everybody.
sure. But they were originally an Instagram page dedicated to just fund different alternative cars in the region, and from there they use that as a platform to launch a very famous now car cafe that hosts a lot of brands. And I think Audi does launches there. That's the one I can remember. BMW does a lot of launches there. They
Singer,
do. Hmm?
Singer showed off the DLS to the region over there. I think that was the
Exactly. So it's a space in a cafe, and they do a special event once a year where they take over a park in the middle of the city, and they bring out what, like 2,000 cars. I think it's a huge an
people get
experience.
into the in period costume like Goodwood and stuff. It is a bit like a mini Good. I haven't been. I fully intend to go this year. Um, but yeah,
Is it
sorry.
this year? Is it early? When is it? I
Oh, is it
forgot.
already next year? Yeah, I haven't been so far, but I will. Whatever the next one is, it's coming up because the good weather's rolling around in the UAE, so it's an outdoor event.
Yeah.
So I
And that's
will.
where, if I were working like you with a brand, I would then recommend them to say, "Hey, have a conversation with Flat 12 and do something then."
Agreed, agreed. And I think
Right?
that's demise. That's why the motor show is dead because it's sad because I loved motor shows. My first ever like I was yeah we won't get into that too much, but like I think motor shows are I think they had a special place in a certain type of car enthusiast's heart, but I think content such as YouTube or Instagram or whatever is taken away from that interest to a certain extent. I think it needs car brands need to try a little harder to create their own special spaces now, and I think that's what more organic events like this are providing. It's less like
Yeah.
a trade show.
Yeah, and what's funny is, and this is something I'm just reading. I like theory. Something that was explained to me in a book was that when a medium, any kind of medium, like say like CD, any or like you said, the new kind of car show, when it succeeds an older type of medium, the medium that has been succeeded, the previous medium, gets like repositioned or rethought of in a much more nostalgic, a much more reverent way. So, for example, when TV became much more popular, cinema became a lot more important, distinguished. When CD came around, vinyl became something that people really, valued and treasure. When websites and Instagram and all this kind of online content became far more popular, the magazine was reframed as something that was something like very important and prestigious. And I wonder if we're going to have that same kind of nostalgia or same kind of reverence for the car show now that these events have kind of superseded them, because it is what you're saying now, that it feels like in hindsight you're reflecting on that. And I wonder if that also happens with this.
I think it's because whatever made the car show special, whatever made it great, whatever utility it served is now being picked up by other things, which are more targeted and better for people. So if you were a consumer, you can now go to a Goodwood or a Grand Picnic or an Icons of Porsche and be better served. If you were a tradesman, if you were a journalist or whatever, you can now go to these specific mobility events or whatever, future of transportation, these things, and learn about a lot more than just cars there. Understand the entire ecosystem, whether that's fuel or energy or cars or like the whole gamut of things. And I feel like it's just it's unfortunate, but also like I don't feel bad about it too much because I feel like there's been enough in its place that my interests are served. You know?
Yeah,
Um,
and let's not forget they were very expensive for manufacturers. You didn't get the attention that you thought you deserved as a manufacturer. And to be honest, the kind of car show killed themselves. I know a lot of journalists who are talking about that, that like um, brands would deliberately show a car before or afterwards because they didn't want to pay the tax of having to do the car show and not be the attention then. And now with the internet, you don't need to pull all the journalists into the same space to get, them all on the same page. You can fire out some press releases, do a specific event for VIPs, and then you've done your job, right?
Yeah, it's also like people are also taking I would say there's also a certain amount of inspiration that comes from Apple here, right? Is that Apple never goes to MWC, they don't go to Mobile World Congress, they don't go to the Consumer Electronics Show, they don't go to CES. They always do their own events in their own space and completely own the narrative of what they're saying. You are not at risk of someone else hijacking your narrative or I guess, overshadowing your narrative when you own it. And I think that is the difference in these single brand or events or whatever, as opposed to whatever. But we've spent a lot of time on this experiences as a media thing. Do you want to briefly talk about Aston Martin?
Yeah, I think actually might nice segue. So uh, they aren't doing well, but did they ever do well? Um, and why? Specifically, you made a good point to me on WhatsApp. You did say that you there. Why is it that a brand that makes fantastic sports cars now makes a great SUV just never got the traction in the region?
Yeah,
And that was the basis, right? Now you put the question, and let me respond with a few different thoughts, if that's okay.
let me provide a little context. We recently read FT's latest report, Financial Times, of Aston Martin. They're hemorrhaging money. They are losing uh, thousands of dollars on each car that they make, every single model. They have arguably the strongest lineup, the strongest marketing, the biggest budgets, deepest pockets they've ever had.
A Formula One team. Do you know what I mean? Like talking about at the right time too. A Formula One team with Fernando Alonso,
With one of the most marketable people in the sport. Whether he's still good or not is a separate question. But like,
one of the most famous.
yeah, he's one of the most marketable people in the sport. They had someone who was also one of the most marketable people in the sport that he replaced, and Vettel.
Yes. They had
Um,
podiums. They've had podiums, not recently, but they've had podiums. Yeah.
and and they are, I think, one of the least visible brands in the UAE. I would argue that in a
Mm.
country that I feel is very big on luxury overall. This is not a premium manufacturer. Aston Martin is luxury. When Ford was selling them, LVMH was bidding. Okay, segue. Go.
No, no, that's fine. I couldn't put it better myself. Then the question then becomes why, and I think I've got 2 points that I want your feedback on.
Okay.
Number one, I think they weren't flashy enough yet. Now it's different, right? They've got the Valkyrie hypercar. They're clearly trying to become a lot more like the British Ferrari, in their own words. I remember them saying that as well. They hired Montezemolo. That was a massive move. So the
No,
man who basically built,
no,
yeah,
no. Montezemelo's McLaren.
I thought it was Aston Martin.
No, it's McLaren.
Oh, thank
Montezemelo's
you.
McLaren.
Sorry, apologies. Good catch.
They're
Uh,
a bunch of ex-Ferrari guys, though. You're right,
yeah,
but not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They were trying to position themselves, and the cars themselves actually drive differently. They're trying to become the British Ferrari. They have now introduced a mid-engine model, not only at the top but in the middle, which I find very interesting too. So I think the problem was in the past they weren't flashy enough, and the region is a very flashy region. And I think the second thing is that they haven't been able to communicate well. And I was I'll raise it here so you can have a platform to disagree with me. But I mentioned Jaguar as a different category of car, premium. It's been mainstream, it's been premium, but they've done very well in Dubai. And I think the reason they've done well is that they had a specific advertising agency that really pushed their brand in the region, but really in the UAE and Dubai. It was Spark 44. They were an incumbent, and they were the incumbent for like a decade, and they were semi in-house as well. And I think through the efforts of that kind of very focused approach, Jaguar were able to promote their brand and get sales here that they wouldn't have. So maybe it's because it's a marketing problem or a communications problem, and it's also the product wasn't flashy enough. That's my thesis.
Yeah, I think even if the product was flashy enough, I don't think it was good enough. I think that's the fundamental problem. If you're paying that much money, not the fundamental problem, sorry, that's a secondary problem. I'll agree with you in a second. But I think the problem was the DB9, as good as it was at launch, was never quite as good as its competition, right? I think the V8 Vantage might have been the only one, but we'll come back to that, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Right now, the latest Vanquish has, I think, beat the Dolce Cilindri in every comparison test I've seen.
Dolce
Um,
cylinder is so sweet because it's literally like sweet cylinder. That's what you called it.
what's it called? The Ducci Cylinder?
Dolce.
Ducci?
It's just
Ducci?
12.
The 12
Douchey.
cylinder.
Yeah,
Fuck that,
yeah.
man. Like, what's the worst name ever? But yeah, way to get people. I want that one. Like,
Ferrari
gorgeous.
can.
I
Ferrari
want
has like Ferrari has enough brand to give their car a name that's unpronounceable and people still want to buy it.
It's gorgeous, but like, yeah, I would rather have a Vanquish. But I agree with you. I think this is fundamentally a marketing problem. I don't think Aston Martin has ever marketed themselves very well in the region. I don't know what they do in the region. And if we go back on it, so we were there was a period when you and I were working at a social media at Jaguar's social media agency. Spark 44 had just come in the region. They had taken over most of the business from the existing agencies, but we're in the process of, I think we eventually handed over social to them as well. We were in the final throes of that. But off the back of that, we picked up an RFP for Aston Martin, if you recall. We were a
Mhm.
really small shop, man, and I think it speaks. I mean,
The
I know
boutique.
that I do think that the overall luxury brands do have specialist luxury agencies. I think that's true, and I don't think Jaguar and Aston Martin sit in the same tier as much as Jaguar would love to believe that. Um, Jaguar is a premium brand, and Aston Martin is very much a luxury brand, in my opinion. But I don't think they've marketed themselves well. I don't think people in the region understand what they stand for. I don't think many even know what they are. They haven't entered the common lexicon as like the way a Ferrari or a Porsche has, for example. It's kind of a higher tier version of the Alfa Romeo problem in a way. But I will
Thought
say
something.
this one thing, if I can wrap up with this, and then I'll let you say your piece as well, is that the Aston Martin dealerships are gorgeous. The one in Dubai, the one in Abu Dhabi, they make you want to own
Now?
cars. I don't know about the one in Dubai. I haven't seen the latest. I don't know if they're still in. Are they still in near the Burj? I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And but no, sorry, question. Is that a new thing or have they always been really nice?
I think they've always been that. I think that's a global brand directive. But
Mhm.
the I Google it later, but look up the dealership in Abu Dhabi, man. Like right next to the ruling palace. Uh it's opposite the Emirates Palace Hotel. It is next to a bunch of really architecturally stunning buildings, and it is on like a platform. It's on a pedestal. Like these cars are on display. There's like inside a display case. It's architecturally stunning, And you see these cars in there, and you're like, honestly, like every time I drive by it, I'm like, one day I'm going to walk in there and buy something. Like I really want. It's like the Apple Store effect.
I think we've missed the elephant in the room, and I can't believe I forgot it as well. I think Aston Martin's problem it can be condensed to two words: James Bond.
Is that a problem though? That's awesome.
No, I think what's interesting is it shows you can't build a brand off the back of one association. And for decades, they had one association, which was James Bond. And if you are an Emirati or if you're a Saudi, and you don't relate to that character, right? You don't want his car because you're not that guy. And I think that's the elephant in the room. Like, you can't create a brand off of one big association. Whereas, okay, maybe Ferrari's done it with Formula One, and they prove the exception that makes the rule. But the amount that Aston Martin sold itself on being the James Bond brand for decades, I think has been lazy, and it's been a detriment, and that they're suffering because they were the the James Bond brand. And before you start, I want to get your feedback on this. Um, I think it's a relatability problem that you if you want to buy the car, the immediate vibe you give off every single Aston Martin until recently was that you are trying to role play as James Bond. So maybe that's just not something that's big in that region.
Okay,
In
so
the
that is very good context. I would have, when you started speaking, I immediately wanted to knee jerk disagree with you, but I 100% agree with you now. I think the relatability thing is very real. I think it would be interesting to talk to some of our Emirati or Saudi friends to see how they feel about that. Um,
mm,
um,
because
yeah,
it's
I
very
think
as well, and like we've met some very arrogant Brits, and I don't know if I'd want to give off that very
but
arrogant vibe.
I think Bentley and Range Rover and even Jaguar, I think Rolls Royce, certainly all of them, I think to a certain extent, thrive on their Britishness in this market. That
Defender,
association,
defender.
royalty, and like, but I get it. It's not the Bond was the only element, right? Like even for Ferrari, I know you've said Formula One, but it wasn't just motorsports. It was their lifestyle brands. There are strategic sponsorships in executive sports and things for some of these brands. So, like for example, um, I do believe, like I think Lamborghini even will sponsor the polo somewhere, and like Porsche will sponsor tennis and golf, and the other luxury brands, for Louis Vuitton, Rolex, all these guys are involved in sailing, and there's this certain like echelon of like I am rich sports or activities, right? Whether
Mm,
that's tennis or golf or sailing or whatever it is, right? They're involved in these things, whether it's through brand sponsorships or brand ambassadors or whatever. And I don't think Aston Martin's really been visible on that up until recently. So I do think the association sorry, the what is it? The kind of what were you saying? The do they understand it? Kind of the relevance
mm.
problem of the James Bond Association is real, but I think that contributes to a larger visibility problem, which is I think they just have not been like Land Rover, Jaguar. They own the Maidan races, right? Like every year, like there are Range Rovers ferrying people about, for example.
And they've been in the James Bond films. And I feel like they've managed to do that and do other things too, right? Like do you remember the launch of the Defender? It was like rolling down the hill. It was so cool. I think it was so brave to show, huh?
The blacked out defenders in the movie looked so good. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and no, but the launch ad.
Or so good to be bad. Like
Yeah, but no, but the Defender launch ad, I remember we were working on it, was the shot in the film where the Defender rolls down a hill, like does a tumble like 5 times and then drives off. Like you want to show off like how cool your car is. It's in a movie. It's extremely tough. I think we discount how important James Bond, the franchise, was for launching the Defender. Do you remember they even had like vintage Defenders in it as well?
yeah. I think I mean, I will say this from an Infinity perspective as well, right? Because I spent a lot of time working on Infinity,
Okay.
and even Infinity understood that better. Like they would sponsor local film festivals, for example, sports tournaments. Last year, when the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was happening, I caught sight of Sainz and his party and Vasseur and his party being chauffeured around in branded Infinity QX SUVs. So they owned that little piece in some way, and I think that those are very, very positive and important affiliations to have. And I think this can all be boiled down to a marketing problem, a visibility problem for Aston Martin. They have not been visible in the right places for this region to care about who they are.
What other brand do you feel like is so associated with a film franchise? Just trying to think now if there's any really. I don't remember. Lotus?
I think the mainstream's understanding of Lotus outside of car, Lotus is big with car enthusiasts, but every time I've watched a video about Lotus on YouTube or whatever with some reviewers or anything, the two references that come up are James Bond and the Julia Roberts film. I can't remember what it's called. But there's a
Oh,
Julia.
yeah,
Let me just search it. Pretty Woman.
yeah.
I've not seen either of these films, but like these are the common associations. I think Lotus in the mainstream is only recognizable because of the esprit in that movie to a certain generation and the esprit in James Bond to a certain generation.
And
Outside
that's
of that,
another brand
it's an enthusiast
not
brand.
doing, yeah,
Hmm?
that's another brand not doing well.
Yeah,
Um, right?
marketing.
Uh, Marketing problem. Well, no, product problem too. I think that's a bigger. That's let's not open that now. 55 minutes in. I mean, let's should we bring
I
this into land? Let's say.
one thing on that because the thought hit me this morning and I really wanted to talk about it, but we're running out of time. This is for another topic. Is that when I was growing up, and they first showed off some of the, first time ever an auto car. I remember reading about some of the Sultan's like custom cars, and he had something called a Bentley Dominator,
Yeah,
and the Ferrari 456 Venice. So the Bentley Dominator was effectively a Bentley SUV built off a Range Rover chassis, and the Ferrari 456 Venice was sedan and station wagon variants of the Ferrari 456 GT car. Which I thought was fantastic because it excited me to see these specialist car manufacturers doing something more than just sports cars. And I saw the Lotus Electre overtake me on the way. Somebody at my gym, apparently, he overtook me to the same class. He needed to get there faster than I did, apparently, and very easy to overtake a Mazda 6. So he overtook me, and I couldn't help but think. But I mean, people can call it whatever they want, but there's that little like young Mo still excited about the fact that Lotus did something that's not a sports car that weighs 5 pounds. But yeah, I will move on from that. I would like to wrap up with a short, unless you want to say something more about that.
no,
We'll save that topic about product for a different episode. But I think the one quick question I wanted to wrap up with was, what do you think is a car that was not officially sold in the GCC or the UAE that you think would have done really well? I think an answer hit me. I'm not actually sure if it wasn't sold. Maybe it came through in limited numbers, but I thought, any thoughts?
I always thought the Century was a very interesting thing because of the Toyota-ness and how big that brand is in the region and how many people have some such strong associations. I think
Century was
now
officially sold here. Century was officially sold here.
was it really?
Yeah. And I don't know the extent of it, but I know this because when I was a little kid, my dad was, no, I wasn't a little kid. I was in middle school. We went to the Lexus Center in Jeddah to inquire about an ES, Lexus ES 300. My dad was looking into buying one. He wanted to upgrade from his Camry. Um, Makes sense. But they had a Century on display, and they told me all about it. So there was a very small amount of Centuries that actually came in. I don't know whether they were special order or what it was, but I do believe a small number of Centuries came in officially.
They were all at that time. The Century was a special order only vehicle.
Mhm.
You had to ask to buy it. So maybe again, I can imagine if you run the dealerships that they would allow you to purchase those vehicles in the region. So that's my answer. But what's yours, Mo?
The answer that hit me that this question started off with was the is a current car, is the Toyota the Corolla GR.
I I think I might disagree, but go on to give me your case.
GTI does well here, and arguably, if they offered a go faster Corolla, I think people would be all over it if they officially sold it here. The Civic Type R, even in the limited numbers that it comes in, is well, it's sought after. So I think the Yaris, there is a market for the, not the Yaris, the Corolla GR. The Corolla is a
Corolla.
strong nameplate here. I don't think the Yaris would fly. I think there are a few people bringing them in, and I think that's fine. But I think the Corolla GR could be a standard car here.
Okay, no, that would be interesting. I've seen a lot of Yaris's, by the way, Yarai GRs.
But
They were officially imported. They were.
mm,
I know a few people who bought them. But it's always going to be a niche product. The Corolla is a good point. I wonder, but is it the same Corolla? Now I'm being really stupid. Talk about not knowing. Is that the same Corolla?
yeah,
We don't
so
we have a different Corolla, don't we?
yeah, well, look, it's based on the American Corolla platform, right? And
Yes.
apparently, same platform, but there are visible differences between the sedan we get here, and spec differences as well between the sedan we get here, the sedan we get there, and we don't get the hatchback at all here. Over there, they do get a Corolla hatchback.
Hmm.
And the GR is built off the hatchback platform. So, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch. I think, like, you bring in a go faster Corolla. I think it would fly. I think it would be a nice little GTI competitor. Um, Toyota's certainly got the brand to do it here, I think. And I think on the back of that, that just reminded me of two others that would have done, I think, would do really well here, which is one of them does get imported, gray imported in large numbers, is the Toyota Tundra. Was never sold here. I think the Tundra would do fantastic here,
Yeah.
and the
What's the
Nissan Titan as
the
well.
Forerunner?
Not that
The
it's dead,
Forerunner.
but the Titan. Sorry.
The Forerunner.
I think there's an explicit reason for the Forerunner not existing here anymore, though I think because they moved away, they had the Forerunner in the 90s, but this would be interesting to talk about because there's a guest we're trying to line up that would know a lot about this. Hopefully we can, you know, make everything work with him. So I'm not going to spill the beans because in the event that it doesn't happen, but there is somebody that we know very familiar with Toyota that I think may come on and talk to us, and it might be worth getting his opinion. So let's save the Forerunner conversation for him. But the Forerunner was sold here. It was I was when I was growing up in Saudi. I think pretty much everyone I knew owned a Forerunner.
Mm.
So
But
there's
maybe
the
it's a
point
Prado.
there.
Maybe because it is basically a Prado anyway. So I feel like you're eating your own market.
Yeah, all those people migrated to Prados when they replaced the Forerunner to Prado. Like every single person I knew that owned a Forerunner eventually ended up buying a Prado. So like,
Do you
car,
have
same, sorry,
Ford Everest, that South African model? There's the what's it called? The Ford. What's the Ford pickup truck called again?
Ranger.
Yeah, the Ranger SUV, the Everest. That's a,
I don't think anyone. I don't think I was in. I left Saudi before.
now. It's the current Ranger.
Yeah,
That's the
a
thing. Okay.
few
Hmm?
different generations of Everest. I think I left Saudi before that ever was introduced to the market. And I don't know how it's doing now. I'm not well informed enough on that topic to comment or add any considerable value.
I
Just
think I don't
like,
have any other value to add now as well. I'm kind of good to wrap if we're done.
yeah, I'd like to get some lunch. But Cool, man. It was a good talk. I like bringing it back to the roots with just you and me. Although I had a good time talking to Imtishan and Asil. I think it's good to just get our opinions out there. But let's see what we can do. Hopefully, we can make this a more regular thing. Speaking of adding no value, I mean, maybe follow us on Instagram and email us with your feedback and stuff. But it seems like LinkedIn's where it's popping. So contact us on LinkedIn, guys, because that's where you guys are most seemingly picking up most of our content. So appreciate
And do
everyone.
said, like comments are really, really appreciated. Feedback's always appreciated.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of really good feedback from everyone. A very interesting thing today. I walked into my gym class in the morning, and the instructor basically said, "Oh man, it's Mo. This guy knows everything about cars. You should check out his podcast." I'm like, this is happening, huh? So, am I partially famous? I don't know, but the numbers certainly don't say so. But we are getting bigger. So we appreciate all of you.
Appreciate every single viewer and listener. Really, like really, really do. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do this for fun. We don't do this for money, guys. This costs us money, if anything. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you guys listening and giving us feedback. So thank you.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.